160 horsepower, 253 Newton meters, 150 horsepower and 250 Newton meters. Now these are pretty serious numbers as mid-size sedans go. Meet the Hyundai Verna Turbo, the Skoda Slavia 1.5 TSI and the Volkswagen Virtus GT. These are cars that will lure you to spend more over their mainstream versions for the extra power and performance that they get you. Question is, which is best? Before you type in where is the City and what about the Ciaz, let me make it clear. This contest is solely about the high power and performance oriented versions of which the City and Ciaz don't have direct equivalents. Be rest assured we will bring the more everyday versions of these three cars along with their chief rivals in a future video. What makes this competition all the more exciting as these are all new cars. The Slavia is the oldest of the trio and it's just been on sale since Feb of last year. Another thing, just in case you don't know, the Slavia and Virtus are fraternal twins. They're from the VW group, they're built on the same platform, at the same plant and share engines and gearboxes too. That's the backstory, let's get to the competition, starting with size. Well, there's really not much between them in length and width and all successfully give off that buddy car feel. It's the Slavia and Virtus that are taller and they look it too. The raised suspensions give them a slightly awkward stance but also get you a handy 179mm of ground clearance. The Verna offers an estimated 165mm of clearance. The Verna has the longest wheelbase, but then again the Slavia and Virtus are not too far behind on this front. All models ride on 16-inch alloy wheels. Where the three are very different is in design. The Hyundai Verna is clearly the most radical in its design and styling. It starts with the split headlamp setup up front with this light bar that runs across the width of the bonnet. You also have a complex looking tail and a lot of lines on the car. I personally like the fastback like silhouette of the Verna, but it is a love it or hate it affair. Some might love the way it looks, some might not buy it for the way it looks. In that sense, the Skoda Slavia and Volkswagen Virtus have wider appeal. They're clean cut and both carry their European brand's identities very strongly. But don't you think Skoda could have been a bit more adventurous with the 1.5 TSI? It looks exactly the same as the lesser powered 1-litre TSI. There is room for a Monte Carlo version, Skoda. Volkswagen has made more of an effort with the high-performance GT version. You get blacked-out wheels, a blackened roof, black mirrors, and even a lip spoiler. And I think it looks really cool. Which sedan do you like the most? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Autocar India and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we have a new video up. Switching focus to the inside, there's lots to talk about. Let's start with the Verna. The new Hyundai Verna's cabin is very modern, very contemporary in look, and that's thanks to this floating twin screen layout that looks really nice. You also get a 2-spoke steering wheel, though I can't say I am particularly a fan because it's so symmetrical. You don't know which way the wheels are pointed. There's no tire angle readout on the instruments. I do like the fact that the touchscreen and the center console is angled towards the driver. It adds that little bit more to the cabin. And there are also these red accents which are exclusive to the turbo variants. But quality is a mixed bag. Now you do get soft touch elements on the dashboard over here. The seats are nicely finished in leatherette upholstery, but like the latest lot of Hyundais, there are far too many hard and shiny plastics on the inside as well. Now, I don't know if that choice of materials led to any cost savings, but I can tell you that Hyundai has been very indulgent when it comes to features. Now, as standard, on the top spec version of the Verna, you get a sunroof, you get a decent sounding Bose sound system, there's an electronic parking brake, you get front seat ventilation and heating, the latter being quite a useful feature in a North Indian winter. There's also a digital instrument cluster. Now it's nice and informative, but I wish it had more contrast. It's not the most readable of screens at certain times. You also get a 10.25-inch touchscreen. Now this is a really slick unit. It's nice, fast and feature-packed as you'd expect in a Hyundai. But because of the way it's angled, you can see all the fingerprints and smudges on the screen. And if you have OCD, that's not very good news. The system packs in eSIM-based connected tech, there's a relaxing Sounds of Nature program, and the screen also doubles as the display for the slick reverse camera. What's missing is wireless connectivity for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Other cool touches include ambient lighting, and one feature which I really like is this button that changes the controls for the music, and at the touch of a button is back to becoming the controls for the climate control system. Now, in a time of touchscreen everything, this is quite a nice and handy solution to have physical controls for the most basic functions. Unique to the Verna is a partially powered driver's seat. Seat position and backrest angle is powered, but height adjustment is via a lever. A point to bring in here is that larger front seats would have made the Verna more welcoming for bigger occupants. The Virtus and Slavia have the more accommodating front seats. On to the Virtus's driver's seat first. After spending time in a Verna, you'll find yourself seated much higher up in a Virtus, and correspondingly you get a different view of the world outside. What you'll see on the inside is also rather nice. I really like the use of gloss black plastics and this red outline for the dashboard. It really adds a lot of personality to the Virtus GT. This is a smartly done cabin, but if you poke around you will find quite a few hard plastics. Even so, the overall sensation inside is that this is a robustly built and solidly put together car, just as you'd expect a Volkswagen to be. Features wise, the top spec Virtus GT gets you a sunroof, ventilated front seats, you get a 10-inch touchscreen that's rather nice to use, it's really slick, and importantly it gets you wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. There's also a wireless phone charger and digital dials. Now the dials don't spread the entire width of the instrument cluster, so that's a bit of a downer, but it is neatly laid out and very informative. I really like the steering wheel, got all your buttons here, but I'm not particularly sure of the auto climate control buttons. You do get touch panels with indents to move your fingers around, but on the go it's not the easiest system to use. The Virtus and Slavia, for that matter, are down on some features to the Verna, and the execution of some other elements could have been better too. For instance, the front seat ventilation is quite noisy in operation, and the rear view camera is low res. The Slavia is no different to the Virtus in that tough feel, but the Skoda's interior sure has a different vibe. Just like its exterior, the Slavia 1.5 TSI's interior is also not what you'd call sporty. Rather, the look is more elegant, and that is helped by this cream on black color combination. And if you look around, there's actually quite a lot of nice touches. One thing I particularly like is this two-spoke steering wheel. It looks really upmarket, and to me, it's a two-spoke steering wheel done right. Now, quality levels aren't quite up there with the more expensive Skodas, but you do get quite a lot of textured plastics. I really like the use of different colors on the dashboard, and over the past year, I've even grown to like this copper strip that runs across the width. Features-wise, the Skoda Slavia gets you ventilated front seats, you get a sunroof, and the eagle-eyed amongst you will realize that this is a 10-inch touchscreen. However, the Slavia on sale at the moment gets an 8-inch unit. It's not only smaller in size, but also loses wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay functionality. The unit is nice enough to use, but the hope is that the 10-inch unit will be back across the lineup soon. Of the other things, the digital dials are nice to use, but again, they don't spread the width of the binnacle, and you do get a Skoda branded sound system that actually is rather nice. Here's a quick glance at the key comfort and convenience features these cars pack in. In terms of safety, these cars pack in 6 airbags, ABS, electronic stability control, and ISOFIX child seat mounts. While all 3 comply with latest Indian crash test norms, they go over and above prevailing regulatory requirements in different ways. The Slavia and Virtus have bragging rights with 5-star scores in global NCAP's adult and child occupant protection parameters. The Verna hasn't been tested by global NCAP as yet, but it is the only one here with radar and camera-based ADAS features that can help prevent an accident altogether. We'll cover the ADAS features in more detail in a bit. For now, time to talk back seats. Into the Verna. Limited rear seat legroom was one of the reasons to avoid the last generation Verna, but Hyundai has made amends with the latest one. And how? There is an immense amount of legroom for occupants at the back. Mind you, I'm just under 6 feet tall and the front seat is set to my driving position. The backrest is also positioned at a comfortable angle. The seat is pretty large and supportive and nicely cushioned, so you can get comfortable with ease on the back seat of a Verna. Where it's not quite as convincing is as a seat for 3 occupants. Now Hyundai does give the middle passenger a 3-point seat belt, but there's no dedicated headrest for this person. And the fact is that the cabin isn't really wide enough for 3 healthy adults to sit in great comfort. Headroom will also be limited for tall passengers, though it's still the best of the 3 sedans. The best way to enjoy the Verna's back seat is to fold down the center armrest and pull up the rear sunshade and just peace out. You'll be satisfied with the rear seat experience in a Virtus too. Space at the back of a Volkswagen Virtus is very generous. As you can tell, even a near 6-footer like myself has enough knee room. Now headroom will be tight for someone of my size, but if you slouch down even a little bit, you will be pretty well catered to. Now the seat itself is meant for 3, but it's not ideal for 3, although you do get 3-point seat belts for all seats and headrests for the middle passenger. The seat is contoured slightly sportily, so a middle passenger won't be the most comfortable. Some might find the rear seat a touch upright as well. The Slavia feels no different on this front. As you'd expect, the rear seat experience in a Slavia is no different to what you get in a Virtus GT. So to recap quickly, you get a good amount of knee room. Headroom is a bit limited, so it's best to slouch down a bit and sit. The seat is very comfortable. You do get a lot of thigh support, but perhaps it's not best for 3 occupants, even though a center passenger gets a 3-point seat belt and an adjustable rear headrest. All cars offer AC vents at the back as well as USB charging ports. You won't be left wanting for storage spaces either, with bottle holders on each of the doors, cup holders at the center console and rear armrests, and large and usable glove boxes. In terms of space for larger items, the 3 sedans have you covered. It's the Verna that has the largest boot on paper, offering 528 litres to the Virtus and Slavia's 521 litres. But fact is, all can accommodate large suitcases with ease. The Virtus and Slavia do go one up on the Verna with the added versatility of 60-40 split rear seats for times when you need to transport long items or just need more space for luggage. On to the driving experience. A quick look at the specs and you'll realize it's quite a close matchup. All 3 cars feature direct injection turbocharged 1.5-litre petrol engines, though it's the Verna with a 10 horsepower power advantage. All 3 can be had with 6-speed manual gearboxes as well, but for this comparo, we've taken the dual-clutch auto versions of each. So, which is the most satisfying drive? We'll start with the Verna. The last gen Verna got a turbo petrol engine option towards the end of its life cycle. Now where that engine was a 1-litre 3-cylinder 120 horsepower unit and was best described as good but not great, this new Verna takes a big step up. Its 1.5-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine puts out 160 horsepower. And correspondingly, it's a whole lot more wholesome. The engine is pleasant in town, though the 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox tends to fumble at low speeds and you can feel the shifts. Things do get better as you build speed. The Verna's 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine comes across as quite genteel in its build of power. It's not hurried or rushed as the VW Group's 1.5 engine can come across, and the build of power is particularly linear here. But what that build of power hides is how strong this engine is across the rev range, and what that means is deceivingly quick performance. In our performance test, the Verna proved the quickest to 100 kph, if by the smallest of margins, and in kickdown acceleration timings too, there's little between the Verna and the BW twins. Yup, the engine revs to 5,800 RPM or so ardent petrol heads don't get that top-end rush that they might be looking for. But the thing with this engine is that you don't really need to rev it all that hard because of the access available throughout the rev range. It's very friendly in its power delivery and very easy to exploit all that this engine can deliver. It's in the higher speed settings that the gearbox also feels its best. The 7-speed dual clutch gearbox is also satisfyingly quick and responsive, both in auto mode and via the paddle shifters or even the gear selector. The Verna is the only one here with drive modes to help fine-tune the experience for the driving environment. Now, Eco mode works well when you're driving in town and want an effortless drive. Normal adds in a bit more performance and a bit more weight at the steering wheel, though the difference to Eco is not that great. Sport mode is when you experience the best that the Verna has to offer. The engine feels most eager, and there is a reasonable amount of weight at the steering as well. Now, I still wouldn't call this the best steering that you can get, but if your benchmark is the older lot of Hyundais, it's a huge improvement and not a deal breaker even for a petrol head. You can actually enjoy yourself on a winding road, but then you also reach the limits of the suspension that comes across as a bit too soft for really gunning it on your favorite roads. There is a bit too much movement up and down, and stability also isn't quite up there with its European rivals. Then again, Hyundai perhaps wants to leave some breathing room for a future N-line version, which should get suspension tweaks as well. A louder exhaust would be nice too, though refinement itself is a highlight. The engine is smooth at all speeds and doesn't get loud even when you're driving hard. Of the other things, the Verna delivers the best ride comfort at everyday city speeds. The Verna has the best low-speed ride of the three cars. It really cushions you better than the Slavia and Virtus do. But when you do go slightly faster over a pothole, you will notice this thwack that comes from the suspension. One area where the Verna has the absolute advantage over the Virtus and Slavia is in its ADAS or Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. The radar and camera based systems pack in a whole lot of features, and most are calibrated well for our conditions. I'm still not entirely comfortable with functions such as lane keep assist, that little buzz from the steering. It does work well, but I'd rather have it off. But you can't argue with functions such as autonomous emergency braking that can actually be lifesavers. Do note there is the odd false alert though. For instance, we got a notification of children on the road when there weren't any. Spooky. Now over to the Virtus and Slavia. The Virtus and Slavia are one and the same under the skin, so whatever I'm saying about the Virtus holds true about the Slavia as well. The Volkswagen Group's 1.5 TSI engine is slightly down on par to the Hyundai unit, but many will actually find it to be the more exciting engine, and that's because it sort of bunches up its power in the mid-range, and it's got the freer top end too. It'll rev to 6,100, 6,200 RPM, and it also sounds quite nice while doing what it does. That noticeable step up in power in the mid-range and more exciting top end make the Virtus and Slavia feel quicker than the numbers would suggest. Performance in town is also likable, but here too the DSG has its quirks. At times you will notice a slight hesitation from the DSG gearbox, but on the whole it is a very smooth unit and very fast shifting unit, and one that feels best when you use it with the paddle shifters. The VW Group's engines are not solely about performance. Now, like the Verna, the VW engine also gets auto stop start, and that does help efficiency, but the VW engine also packs in cylinder deactivation. So when you're going easy, it'll shut down 2 of the 4 cylinders for best efficiency. And the really good thing is that you really don't know this transition between 4 and 2 and back to 4 cylinders. A notification on the instruments will tell you what's happening behind the scenes. Talking efficiency, here's a quick look at the numbers we got in our fuel economy tests. Into the Slavia for the other aspects of the driving experience. I'll speak of the VW Group cousins ride and handling from the comfort of the Slavia's driver's seat. A 179mm of ground clearance is a lot and actually comparable to a few SUVs. And even when you look at the car, visually it looks jacked up. So you wouldn't be wrong to think that it would be quite roly-poly in the corners. The good news is it isn't. Yes, there is some amount of roll, but on the whole, it changes direction with a good amount of poise and lets you hold speed with great confidence. Enhancing that feel is the steering. The steering is light, but there's a good amount of precision that you get from it, a good amount of connect, and it really all adds up to give you a very enjoyable driving experience. Even when you're out cruising at higher speeds, you'll find that it's the Slavia and Virtus that feel more sure-footed, offer that greater degree of stability, and drive like heavier cars, although there isn't all that much between their weights and the Vernas. A point to bring in here is that the Virtus and Slavia make do with front disc and rear drum brakes, while the Verna DCT gets disc brakes all around. There are differences in braking performance and feel. It's the Verna with the stronger brakes and shorter stopping distance, but the Virtus and Slavia do equalize things by feeling more sure-footed under hard braking. The Slavia and Virtus suspension setup does manifest in a different low-speed experience. The Slavia and Virtus's suspensions are rather nice if you see them in isolation, but if you've come from a Verna, you will note that the setup is a bit firmer here. You will feel more of the road below, and there is also a lot more road noise that makes its way into this cabin, though it's not to a degree of being uncomfortable. Again, after a go in a Verna, you'll note higher sound levels in a Slavia and Virtus. You do hear more of the engine, you do hear more of the road, and the VW Group twins don't quite cut you off from the outside world as well as the Verna does. So, which of the 3 sedans is for you? If you're an ardent petrol head and the driving experience gets top weightage, your choice should be down to the Skoda Slavia and Volkswagen Virtus. The punchy engines and crisp handling make them big fun, and the twins also score well on other parameters like space, comfort and build quality. Between the two is the Virtus GT with its added flash that we are leaning towards more. As mentioned, a Monte Carlo with added visual drama would give the Slavia the show to match the go. While the Volkswagen and Skoda are near identical on price, with the range-topping Virtus GT Plus DSG yours for 18.56 lakh rupees and the Slavia 1.5 style priced at 18.45 lakh rupees. They are significantly pricier than the fully loaded Verna Turbo DCT SXO that comes in at 17.37 lakh rupees ex-showroom. Bundled within the Hyundai's lower price tag are more comfort and convenience features, as well as the added safety net of ADAS. The Verna scores well on space and comfort too, and makes for a fun driver's car, even if it's not as involving as the VW twins. The Hyundai's got the performance you'd want, and the overall experience behind the wheel will satisfy most drivers. So would you like the specialist or the all-rounder? Yeah, but I don't know if I'm talking rubbish. Done, yo.